Good day everyone, I am Jude Adrian and Nicolas, and today I will open a new topic which is the existential therapy. So for my topics, I will discuss the key concepts of this therapy and the therapeutic process. And at the discussion, I hope you will remember and understand all of the following topics. So from the word existential, it concerns with the responsibility for creating purpose or meaning in our own lives. In application, existential therapy bases on the therapeutic practice or understanding of what it means to be human. But how do we differentiate living with existing? So when we exist, it refers to our will to remain alive and continue to be, or in simpler terms, we exist when we do what is necessary to survive. Meanwhile, when we live, we try to enjoy our existence and savor every moment of our lives. The goal of existential tradition is to actually make human existence worth of living. It seeks a balance between recognizing the limits and tragic dimensions of human existence on one hand and the possibilities of opportunities of human life on the other hand. The existential therapy is born out of a desire to help people engage in the questions of life such as isolation, alienation, and meaninglessness. So the current focus of this existential approach is on the individual's experience of being alone and the reality of being anxious when an individual feels isolated or estranged from the world. Later on, we will discuss the six basic dimensions or the propositions according to the existential approach. We have here the capacity for self-awareness, freedom or responsibility, creating one's identity and establishing meaningful relationships with others, search for meaning, purpose, values and goals, anxiety as a condition of living, and awareness of death and non-being. So as what I've said recently, we have here the first two propositions, which are first, the capacity for self-awareness. It says that the greater our self-awareness, the greater our possibilities for freedom. So we increase our capacity to fully live as we aim for complete self-awareness in the following areas. First is that we are finite and we do not have unlimited time to do what we want in life. We have the potential to take action or not to act. Inaction is also a decision. So the choice is ours on what is better. Also, we choose our actions, and therefore we can partially create our own destiny. It means our fate is decided by our own choices. The more rational it is, the better our destiny will be. And meaning is the product of discovering how we are put or thrown or situated in the world, and then through commitment, we are living creatively. It means that we should explore more and be creative and explore our purpose on why are we being put into this world. So as we increase our awareness of choices available to us, we also increase our sense of responsibility for the consequences of these choices. And since self-awareness helps us lessen our fear of the unknown, lest we forget that we still are subject to loneliness, meaninglessness, emptiness, guilt, and isolation. Because we're humans. But it should not stop there. We are basically alone, yet we have an opportunity to relate to other beings. So ultimately, increasing self-awareness, which includes awareness of alternatives, motivations, factors influencing the person, and personal goals, is an aim of all counseling. It is the therapist's task to indicate to the client that a price must be paid for increased awareness. So when we want to be aware, we explore our dimensions, and when we explore, we never know if what we're gonna get is fulfillment or not. So when we say that a price must be paid for increased awareness, meaning there is always risks when we strive for the things that we want, or if we are trying to chase our own freedom. Speaking of freedom is the next. Freedom and responsibility. It says here that we are challenged to accept responsibility for directing our lives. So since we are being put into this world, it is up to us to create our own life the way we wanted it to be. And that is why we all have the equal share of different struggles because we all take different walks in our lives. We all have different dreams and we all create our own version of purpose. So as they say, life is ours to live. So for the third and fourth propositions, we have the striving for identity and relationship to others. It says here that as rational beings, we also strive for connectedness with others. Normally, people concentrate much on their uniqueness and centeredness. Yet at the same time, they have an interest in going outside of themselves to relate to other beings and to nature. So as social beings, we find ways to connect with others. Without human relationships, there will be loneliness, uprootedness, and alienation, which is harmful or detrimental to human life. So as we search for connectedness, we also next search for our meaning. So when we ask ourselves with, why are we here? What do I want from life? What gives my life purpose? Where is the source of meaning for me in life? Now those questions are the type of questions embedded in an existential crisis. When the world they live in seems meaningless, clients may wonder where it is worth to continue struggling or even living. So faced with the prospect of our mortality or death, we might ask, is there any point to what I do now since I will eventually die? Or will what I do be forgotten when I am gone? So one of the famous existentialists, Viktor Frankl, introduced logotherapy, which is designed to help clients take note, find a meaning in life. The therapist's function is not to tell clients what their particular meaning in life should be, but to point out that they can discover meaning even in suffering. So this view holds that human suffering is the tragic and negative aspects of life and can be turned into human achievement if we take it as a paradox or beauty in suffering. So when we actually recognize and accept our vulnerabilities or that humans do naturally suffer, we softly put ourselves into a struggle and then it makes us more strong and more fitting in life. But again, it does not stop there. So for the last two propositions, we have anxiety as a condition of living. It says here that anxiety can be a stimulus for growth. So this proposition supports Frankl's view of finding human meaning even in suffering. We all know that anxiety arises from an effort to survive, and this feeling is an inevitable aspect of the human condition. So for the types of anxiety, we have normal anxiety and neurotic anxiety. Normal anxiety is an appropriate response to an event being faced. It is hence normal. Further, this kind of anxiety does not have to be repressed and it can be used as a motivation to change. However, neurotic anxiety in contrast is out of proportion to the situation. It tends to stop or immobilize a person. Being psychologically healthy means living with as little neurotic anxiety as possible while accepting that we have an existential anxiety or normal anxiety that is a part of living. And lastly is the awareness of death and non-being. It says here that this does not view death negatively and that our distinguishing human characteristic is the ability to grasp the reality of the future and the inevitability of death. Importantly, in Frankl's perspective, death should not be considered a threat. Rather, death should give us the motivation for us to live our lives well and take each opportunity to do something purposeful. So rather than being afraid by the fear of the thought of death or the unknown, existentialists view that death can be viewed as a positive force that enables us to fully live as possible. So, although the notion of death is a wake up call or an alarm, it is something that obviously we should strive to avoid as well. So, therapy is a process of bringing out the latent aliveness in the client. It identifies three main tasks of therapy: the function and role of the therapist, the client's experience, and the therapist client relationship. Now, in the three main tasks of therapy, it should assist, support, and help clients. It should assist clients in recognizing that they are not fully present in the therapy process itself and in seeing how this pattern may limit them outside of the therapy. This case is that therapists could no longer intervene outside of therapy. The role of the therapist is to only help the client focus on their personal responsibility for making decisions, and therapists could only integrate some humanistic approaches and techniques. Next is support clients in confronting the anxieties that they have so long sought to avoid. And next is they should help clients redefine themselves and their world in ways that foster great genuineness of contact with life. So you would notice three particular words there, which are assist, support, and help. The role of therapists in existential therapy is to only provide humanistic aids for clients and let them emulate it outside of the therapy. Meanwhile, for the therapist's function and role, they only facilitate the client's own encounter with themselves, to work alongside with them in the job of exploring and understanding better the client's values, assumptions, and ideals, just like what I said earlier about the limits of this therapy. Importantly, the therapist must be self-aware and be able to set aside as much preconceptions as possible, and to encounter the client's world with an open mind. For the client's experience therapy, so given that they are expected to go outside into the world and decide how they will live differently, an experienced client is not just aware of his or her limits or role, but also encourage clients to take actions on the basis of the insights therapists have injected to their clients in the therapy. And lastly, for the therapist-client relationship, therapists only believe that their basic attitudes toward the client and their own personal characteristics of honesty, integrity, and courage are what they only have to offer. Therapy is a journey taken by the therapist and client that delves deeply into the world as perceived and experienced by the client. So just like any role of therapist in any forms of therapy, the quality of the person-to-person encounter in the therapeutic situation should be a stimulus for positive change in an individual. So I have here a flowchart of existentialists that made a breakthrough in the development of existential therapy. Of course, we have the OG, Viktor Frankl, who developed logotherapy, which means therapy through meaning. Frankl's philosophical model sheds light on what it means to be fully alive. To be alive, according to him, to be alive encompasses the ability to take hold of life day by day, as well as to find meaning in suffering. So if you saw the recent viral post about him on Facebook, I'm sure you would love Viktor Frankl. So along with Frankl, psychologist Rollo May was deeply influenced by the existentialist philosophers, so by the concepts of Freudian psychology and by many aspects of Alfred Adler's individual psychology. So both Frankl and May welcomed flexibility and versatility in the practice of psychoanalysis. So along with May, two other significant existential therapists in the United States are James Bugental and Irvin Yalom. Bugental developed an approach to death therapy based on the existential concern with an individual's immediate presence and a humanistic emphasis on the integrity of each individual. So, in the art of psychotherapist, Bugental describes a life changing approach to therapy. He views therapy as a journey taken by the therapist and the client that delves deeply into the client's subjective world. Meanwhile, Irvin Yalom in 1980 describes four major ultimate concerns, which are death, meaninglessness, isolation, and freedom. He describes these as the givens, or the naturals of the existence, or an inescapable part of being human, and that every person must come to terms with these concerns through active choices to realize their individual potential. So, to continue this report, I have my partners to discuss further about existential therapy. Good day, everyone.